Time is now 6:02, and I call this Borough Council workshop meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business, not on the agenda, is we have Council Member Hicks via Zoom. So I will need a motion to permit Council Member Hicks to attend the meeting via Zoom.
So moved.
Motion by the Deputy Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Stubbe. Any comment? I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion passes. Welcome, Joel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good to be here.
Gives me an idea of the delay we'll be dealing with tonight, too. First official order of business is presentation from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We have the report of recommendations. Co-chair Callahan, will you be taking the podium to offer a few opening comments, or you're just looking for?
No, we are here, the three of us, representing the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and we're happy to answer any questions about the report we submitted. And I think at this time, we'd just like to thank you for taking the opportunity to discuss the commission and being placed here confidence in us.
Okay, thank you. And I'll mention that one. I want to thank everybody individually. We have three members here this evening. The full commission over the life of the commission. I think we need to thank each and every one of them. And I know co-chair Hunter Stallworth is with us by Zoom. Tawanda Hunter Stallworth, Emily Callahan, Andrew Razanauskas, who I always say Raz, so when I had to say your last name, I was like, yes. Jerry Sturkey, Rhonda Watts, Lou Werderbach, and Doreen Wilbur, all current members of the commission. And then commissioners past, Ralph Donaldson, Kendall Isaac, Tristan Milazzo, and haven't been the liaison to the commission since its inception. I can tell you that they worked diligently and passionately, and had strong opinions at times, and worked through those to the recommendations that council now has before us. The intent tonight is just to help council sort of digest the report, not to take any action tonight. We'll wait at least until next week to take any action to accept the recommendations. Perhaps wait until next month if we need a little more time to digest that. But by the time we wrap this up, I'll get an opinion from council on when we want to take some action on it. So, are there any questions that council has of the commission on any of the recommendations or the process in general?
I don't have any questions, but I do want to say thank you to all of you for the work that you've done in getting this Truth and Reconciliation Commission going. I had not heard of it before until we had our town hall meeting, so it was good to be able to be a part of the interviewing and getting it up and running. So thank you all for putting the time in to do it.
Any other comments, questions? You look like you were going for your mic.
So likewise, I just want to thank all of you for the work you did in committing to serving on this commission for almost 2 years, and for providing us this report. I know I had the opportunity to attend a lot of the meetings early on, but then unfortunately haven't been able to. I've been trying to follow them, looking at your minutes and the recordings that have been posted. So I've appreciated the opportunity to do that. I think there's a lot of things for us to digest and go through here. I did have a question, and this is, at the end of the report, the section under future of the work, and essentially establishing like a standing committee moving forward. And I was just curious if you had any input on, and I know it says here similar in composition and charge to the Climate Action Committee, but if you had any input on essentially, and maybe this is too nitty gritty, but how many members this committee might have, whether there should be a breakdown of requiring that a certain number of the committee members be borough residents versus non-borough residents, or any other factors along those lines. I know that there, in the initial resolution that formed the TRC, there were some guidelines for the membership of the commission itself. So I was just curious as to what your thoughts were on a standing committee moving forward, how that would look.
Would you like me to go?
If the mic picks up a little bit better over there, that would be helpful. Thanks.
And I invite my fellow commissioners to come up if you wish. My view on that would be that I think we were greatly benefited by expanding membership beyond the borough, especially the addition of member Tamblyn Watts towards the end of our existence, brought forward some really compelling considerations and some things that I think are important for the borough to undertake. So I think experience has taught us that the addition of those members was really important. As far as the composition, as you all know, we had some resignations due to folks taking on different positions and relocating. And I may speak for myself, but I think we could have done with a couple extra hands. So I would say the commission should be, or whatever standing committee is created, if you decide to vote in favor of that, I would advocate for a slightly larger committee than the composition of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, simply because I do think one has to be prepared for unexpected resignations, and because hopefully you can't tell reading the report, but the different areas were undertaken by different members of the commission, and we really needed that division of labor to be able to complete the work in the amount of time allotted. So I would say at least as large.
Thanks. That makes sense. And along those lines, I will say, in reading this, I think it flows pretty well. It's not abundantly clear that different people wrote different sections. So as you all worked in putting it together and editing it, I think you did a good job as making it seem like one cohesive document.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the commission? No. Go.
Yeah, just also wanted to echo the thanks for the commission. This is really great work, and I know it's a thankless job to volunteer and take this all on. So you all did amazing work, and I'm still digesting everything and thankful that we get another week to talk about it. I did have a couple process questions. So for the standing committee, and I don't know if it's the commission's thought or if I defer to you, Mr. Mayor, would that be a vote next week? Or is that a longer discussion next month?
We would need an ordinance to establish another standing committee.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be able to move forward with that until next month because of our advertising timelines.
Okay. And then so my next and probably maybe my last question, if we take action next week to say we love the recommendations, we want to adopt all of them, we want to adopt some of them, we want to edit some of them, does anyone envision that standing committee? I'm trying to think of what holds us accountable, right? So if this council, as we currently sit this year, says we want to accept this, and then next year some of us leave, and there's future councils, I'm just trying to figure out what's going to make sure that council follows through, because I think it's too important to not. It's great if we accept some of these, but I think that extra work of making sure it goes into action is super important.
Right, and I won't speak for the commission except to the extent that I was there and actually raised the question of what sort of role that the future committee or commission would have, and suggested that there may be a need for that oversight to ensure that there's some adherence to the recommendations. And so I think going into the report, part of the expectation is that ongoing body will have a role in not just implementation of different items, but of ensuring that the work is continuing. And I think we should note, and I know that the report itself notes this, is that this isn't obviously is not the end of the work, right? This is a first, maybe we can say sort of a second step, if we include the initial town hall, and that there's going to be an evolving process over time. So this is an initial report. That committee may come up with additional recommendations down the line, or internally we may either council as a body, or if we have another role on staff may come up with additional recommendations. So it's going to be continuous work. We didn't get here overnight. And the need for this, I mean, it was 400 years of history, and so this one report's not going to solve all our issues. But I probably shouldn't have spoken first.
Nope.
But if there's more to add
completely.
to that,
Yeah, you said it better than I could have.
yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Any other questions?
Just one last question, I guess. Just looking at one of the recommendations under law enforcement. So next week, if we were to vote, just in theory, to say to accept these, would that be the time to amend? I'm just looking specifically the one with the right to know law. I'm a little nervous. We as a body can't dictate what the right to know law dictates. That's kind of a state statute. So I just want to be sure we're not approving something that says, oh, we're going to do this, which is not following the state law.
Yeah, and I think that recommendation is that in order to provide that information, a right to know law request should be required, and that it shouldn't be just posted to publicly necessarily after a period of time. So
thanks.
But those are the types of things I think that the commission envisioned and talked about. The council may decide to tweak these a bit or accept certain recommendations and not others, or maybe focus on certain things and not others initially. I think that's part of the expectation here. But I'll also say that sitting as liaison, part of I think the initial reason we established the commission was to have a non-political body create these recommendations, so that it wasn't the governing body sort of driving the discussion. And I think it's important as we think about what we may do with these, that we recognize that too, that it's not, I don't know that we should necessarily be the drivers entirely of what this turns out to be. Any other?
Nope,
okay. And we'll get to you, Tawanda. I think we have another comment from Deputy Mayor.
It'll be brief. First of all, thank you all. It's a very easy to read but informative and well thought out report, and I do appreciate easy to read reports because I've had to read some that are a slog. But I think this is more of a comment to going off of what Mayor Schultz was talking about, that this is not an exhaustive list. There's continual work, and I think that that's something that we as council can continue to do with our every agenda. We can look at it with the lens of thinking of some of these conversations we've had before, some of the presentations we've seen from the TRC, and even though some things might not directly say it in the recommendations, like we can see how things connect and we can ask thoughtful questions, I think, when we have these opportunities here. So everything might not be directly written out in the recommendations, but I think it's also on us to continue to have that conversation within our work every single time that we're here. So thank you.
And before I get to Co-Chair Hunter Stallworth, Councilor Hicks, I know sometimes on Zoom it's you get lost out there. Feel free to chime in at any point, but I'll give you some opportunities to make sure that we don't miss you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm copying everything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Co-Chair Hunter Stallworth.
Yes, Mayor Schultz, thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Fantastic. In terms of first, I just wanted to thank all of my colleagues on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, especially Co-Chair Callahan, and for all of the work that she did. I am truly grateful for her. And in terms of process and moving forward, one of the sort of closeout activities of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was to sponsor in part the Martin Luther King Community Commemoration Civic Service on Monday, January 16th, 2023. There's a march that leaves from Shiloh at 11 a.m. and then a panel discussion will be had at Dickinson Law at 11:30 a.m. The panel discussion is definitely an opportunity for council to engage the community around the recommendations that have been put forth by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So we talk about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and how it started was that Martin Luther King weekend. If you all remember, we were all on our Zoom squares for that. And so I think coming back to that event has significant impact, and being able to engage a couple of folks who were instrumental 30 years ago in the origination of the committee, but also to be able to speak to the recommendations in a sort of longitudinal approach. And again, the opportunity for community engagement is there as well. I think, you know, any of the commissioners, as it says in the report, are available for further clarification, et cetera, et cetera. But did just want to make available that opportunity for continued conversation around the recommendations, further clarification, community engagement. Maybe there's a recommendation that you'd like to pose as a discussion prompt for that panel discussion. Certainly would be a great opportunity. So thanks again for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve.
Thank you. So I think what I would suggest at this point is that we take, I know there are probably a number of things that we're going to need to take some action on, especially if there's an ordinance involved. So it's going to be something, let's add that discussion again to the agenda next week, and have some focus on those issues that we may need to act on, with some advertising that might be necessary, to then authorize the solicitor to draft ordinances as necessary. Perhaps bring this back for further discussion at our next workshop, and then take some final action on the report at our regular meeting in February. Does that make sense for everybody?
Can we also publicly post these?
These are already
Were they already out?
posted.
Okay,
Yep.
Perfect. That's
Yep.
I missed that part, but this
Yeah.
is one of those things that I think is crucial to have public input on.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is citizens to be heard. So we have our commissioners here. Now's your opportunity to speak as residents of Carlisle or residents near Carlisle. We don't have anybody other than Tawanda and Joel on Zoom, I assume. I know I'm supposed to look this way. That's all we have. So, okay. So there's no citizens to be heard. Move on to the meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion that council review and approve the November 30, 2022 workshop meeting minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion by the Deputy Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Mellon. Any comment? Call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say, sorry, Joel. So those opposed say nay. The motion passes. On to my report. I'll make a motion that council ratify a grant application of $80,500 for 5 electric vehicles through the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection Alternative Fuels Incentive Grant Program. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by the Deputy Mayor. Any comment? And Joel, I'll pause because I know this is a climate action issue too, if you want to provide any comment on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just say a few things. First of all, thanks to Owen for working through the various subsidies and incentives that mapped most closely to what our short-term needs were for replacing some of our vehicles. It's not, let's just say it's not intuitive to know which is the best pathway. So I think this AFIG grant is really our best option in the near term, and it's great that we have 5 vehicles lined up. And I think it reflects the priorities that we have in our transportation element, which is about 30% of our emissions, right, are from our vehicle fleet. So this hits a need right away, and look forward to continuing to think through, right, how we actually build out the infrastructure, not just to support these lower emission vehicles, but also to support them through charging network. So again, applaud Owen and Jared, and of course Susan, for getting it going. And this is probably the first manifestation from a policy perspective, executing our climate action plan and putting policies into practice. So thank you very much to staff for getting it going. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Hicks. Any other questions, comments from council? Okay, then I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The motion passes. Economic Development Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one action item tonight. I move that Borough Council may direct the Borough Solicitor to advertise an ordinance approving an agreement between the Redevelopment Authority of Cumberland County and the Borough of Carlisle to include, but not limited to, the continuance of leasing office space, parking, and basic services in Borough Hall. Agreement shall be retroactive from January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023.
Motion by Councilor Crampsey for the advertising of an ordinance to approving an agreement between the Redevelopment Authority and the Borough. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Councilor Perry. Any comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion passes.
That ends my report.
Public Works.
I move that Borough Council approve the purchase of school zone traffic control signals from Traffic Products LLC of Malvern, PA for $33,562 through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's Cooperative Purchasing CoStars program.
Motion by Councilor Perry for the approval of purchase of school zone traffic control signals. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Stubbe. Any comment? I'll just mention part of this came from the parents at Hamilton Elementary, and recognizing that was one of the it was the only school or one of the last schools not to have this sort of traffic control device, the elementary school, and there had been some near misses over there. So they're very excited to have this in the ground as soon as possible.
And actually, I'll just thank staff and everyone that put effort forward on this, because that other stretch on on Wagner's Gap B Street is near and dear to my heart too, and having that speed traffic control on there would be helpful. So hopefully.
Any further comment? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Motion passes.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilor Perry. Employee Relations.
I have one motion tonight. I make the motion that Borough Council appoint Mr. Jordan Hawley, Community Code Enforcement Officer for the Borough of Carlisle, to a 4-year term on the Borough Board of Historical Architectural Review. This term will become effective immediately and will expire on December 31st, 2026.
Motion by the Deputy Mayor to appoint Mr. Hawley to the Board of Historical Architectural Review. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Mellon. Any comment? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The motion passes. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. There is no new business this evening. I'll assume there's still no public comment out there. No, I'm getting some shaking heads from the audience here, and so we are adjourned. Thank you all.